All right, welcome in for the first episode of our new podcast called RoundballRadio. It's the first day of NBA season today. It's going to be a good show, guys. My favorite topic of the year we're covering in our first episode. I love talking about preseason predictions, season preview, all that kind of good stuff. I'm Sam Hadler, your host. I'm joined by my co-host JT Cunningham and Dylan Gorman. What's up, guys?
How we doing?
Doing well.
Not too bad. Ready to talk some ball.
Absolutely.
Um, we got a pretty good show for you guys today. We're gonna go through our preseason reaction, talk a little bit about what we um, thought about the preseason, if we had any key takeaways, any strong reactions one way or the other. Talk a little bit about our fantasy basketball draft and our strategies and how we attack them, and if they came to fruition or not. We'll talk a little bit about the NBA over-unders and some of our best bets, both in either direction. Then we have our playoff and championship predictions that we'll go through. Our playoff teams ultimately will pick a champion. So we'll have this on record if we want to go back later in the season and just see how off we were, and maybe we were right as well. We'll find out. And then we have our award predictions as well. So we'll go through some of the top awards in the NBA and where we think who will be deserving of those awards. So that's what we have on show for you today. I do want to talk a little bit about the podcast before we begin. So like as I mentioned, this is Roundball Radio. This will be our first official episode. Basically what it is, it's a trio of three guys who talk about basketball throughout the regular season. We'll probably meet bi-weekly and just go through some of the major headlines throughout the season. We'll touch base on our fantasy season as well, and get our reactions as the season goes along. And then, we'll cover the top storylines. We'll give you guys our unique opinion in regards to this. And anything you guys want to add to that?
Yeah, so we always talk in a group message between us and some other guys about takes we have, about opinions about the NBA and other sports, and we just wanted to get it on record. We wanted to have other people hear it and see how stupid we are. So we thought, what better way to put a YouTube channel together and, get our takes off.
Yeah, I think I put it in the channel description that we are sometimes well-informed and often passionate and irrational, so that's how I feel like we operate.
Yeah, and I think that's the perfect description for exactly what you're going to get from this show. So, all right, guys, with that, we'll jump into our first topic. I just want to get your reactions about the preseason. How much do you value preseason games, and do you come out with any strong reactions? So, Dylan, we'll start with you. How did you feel about the preseason, and did you have any takeaways?
Honestly, I don't put too much stock in the preseason. It seems like every year there's good teams, there's bad teams that either overperform, underperform during the preseason. It doesn't have much correlation with the regular season. There's a few key things I really look for. One for this year was injured players. I wanted to go through and see how everybody looked and how they were recovering and how they fit with their teams. A couple names that came to mind was Kyrie and Durant. And I know the first game's on right now, but I saw them in the preseason, and they both look just fantastic. I mean, I couldn't believe they didn't look like they missed a beat. They didn't look like they had any time off. They looked focused, and they actually put in more effort than I would have expected during the preseason. And Durant, especially with that Achilles tear, I thought that could be a devastating injury where he might not ever come back to full strength. And honestly, during the preseason, he looked really good. But beyond that, I saw Wall, saw Boogie in the Rockets. They look good. In general, the injured players look better than I expected, and that's gonna be fun for the season. There's a lot of players out last year, so it should be fun. Beyond that, I was looking at younger players also to try to see who's gonna take the leap. Two guys that stood out for me were the top two draft picks from last year, so maybe it's not a hot take, but both Zion and Ja Morant looked like they were stars. They looked unbelievable. I mean, Zion, he looked so athletic. Ja looked like so in control that I think that bodes well for both those teams' future, not just preseason, but going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I think we might have lost your audio there, Dylan. Or
Oh, God,
JT?
He's good.
Oh, all right. Yeah, so just from what I wrote in my notes as well, you mentioned Durant. I think he looked amazing. He looks back to full strength and healthy. So I think we're going to get a big year from him. And then, yeah, as you mentioned, Dylan, too, we got the Warriors Nets game on right now. It's the first game of the regular season. So excited to watch that. I have it to my right here, so I'm kind of peeking up at the screen throughout the game. We'll see what happens. But how about you, JT? Did you have any strong takeaways from the preseason?
I don't know if I had like strong takeaway. Well, I'd echo Dylan's sentiment that I thought Durant looked sort of unbelievably good, and then Durant and Morant both looked incredible. Generally, I don't really pay attention hardly at all to the preseason unless it's the Wolves. I'll kind of tune in and see how they're playing. But this year I paid some especially close attention because I didn't get to overreact to Summer League. So I had to overreact to something, and that was preseason this year. So I was kind of just trying to check in on the rookies, sort of see how they looked, sort of get a feel for, do they look like they're trying to, play their game in the NBA, or does it look like they're sort of fitting into their schemes, to their teams, and sort of the pace of play as it's coming to them? So I thought a couple of guys that did really well, and there were a couple of guys that I was sort of high on going in, which was Denny and Patrick Williams. I both thought looked like sort of just good fits for the teams. Sort of capable of playing off ball, capable of being good ball players without having the rock in their hands 30 minutes a game. Ball and Edwards, kind of the two most high-profile rookies that were playing. I didn't really think they didn't necessarily wow me. I know Ball had a couple of highlights here and here, here and there, and Edwards got hot for about 5 minutes in the last Wolves game. But other than that, I think they looked like what I'd expect for them throughout this year, which is high volume, low efficiency, and they'll have some streaky games throughout the season, and we'll kind of see what happens. But no huge takeaways.
Yeah, I actually, when it comes to Ball too, I thought he had a really good preseason. I think he's going to be a guy who is going to have no problem putting up the numbers. There's definitely flaws in his game, defensively, and then his shot looks so much like Lonzo's, and I just don't know if there's going to be consistency there, especially from deep. But he did have a few good games this preseason shooting the ball. So he's actually a guy I really like. In terms of just being able to put up the numbers, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out with him and Edwards as well, because they're going to be obviously compared for a while, being two of the top 3 picks in the draft. A couple other takeaways that I had, guys, was that I wrote down. Dylan touched on the Kevin Durant one. JT mentioned LaMelo Ball. I also thought DeMarcus Cousins, he looked healthy for the first time in a while, which was awesome to see. He put up a few vintage Boogie Cousins stat lines in limited minutes, and he had high efficiency. So I really am looking forward to watching him play, getting on the court this year with Wall and Harden as well. So he's a guy that I picked up in our fantasy draft, which we'll talk about here in a second or so. Another guy that I really thought stood out to me, who I think is going to earn minutes this year, with the Lakers, was Talen Horton-Tucker. He had an amazing preseason. He shot 6% from the field, 54 from downtown, 89 from the free throw line, averaged 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 2.3 steals. And he's only, I think, 21, if I recall correctly. And this is a guy that LeBron's been hyping up for a while now. I think he's going to be a guy who finds his way into the rotation this year with the Lakers and is going to make a difference and just give him another body.
So you don't think he's just a preseason all-star? You think that he's actually for real?
No, well, I definitely think his numbers are going to be inflated in the preseason because he's going to get more playing time. But I think he carved out at least a niche role with the team throughout the season where he's going to be able to, I think, provide valuable minutes. And we even saw it a little bit during the playoffs when he got that one run. I know the game was out of it, I'm not factoring too much into that, just like I won't try to factor too much into the preseason. But in that one game in the playoffs when they were way out ahead, he got some good run, and he came in and he just pretty much what he did in the preseason this year. He was really efficient, and gave him some good minutes. So I'm just as a Laker fan, or I guess primarily a LeBron fan, I'm looking forward to having another guy in the rotation for them this year who can get them through the 82 game season and give some of their top guys some rest heading into the playoffs. So those were my.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are the Lakers too deep? Do they have too many good players? Are they too talented?
Yeah,
I'm starting to think that. I just want to get your opinion.
Are we thinking that LeBron might come off the bench this year, or?
No, I mean I don't play into that narrative, Dylan, because I'm gonna say they're not deep enough. LeBron doesn't have enough help, actually. I think that's the narrative we wanna. If we're as LeBron fans, if we're trying to come up with some narrative, I think it's that LeBron's got no help and he's got to do it all by himself again at 7 years old.
Well, he's been doing his whole career, so he might as well keep going now, you know?
Yeah, so. And then just quickly touching on Durant as I watch him to my right here. Just with LeBron getting a little older, and I think Durant, I think he's going to come back like close to 100%, honestly. I can really see him battling LeBron for that top spot in the NBA. As much as I love LeBron, taking an unbiased look at this, I really think that KD could be that dude this year who might unseat LeBron as the best player, just because he's got a great team around him, and it'll be fun to watch. So.
Bad take.
All right, guys. It's not a take that I love, Dylan. I gotta tell you, it's not a take that I love.
It's gonna happen someday, Dylan. You just have to accept that.
You gotta face the music at some point. No, but I think in a one game, come end of the season, I'm still gonna take LeBron. So I'm just hedging my bets right now. So
I hear that. Was Durant 32 now though, or 33, or how old is he?
He can't be that old.
He's definitely at least 32. I want to say.
I could see 32 maybe.
32. He's 32. I just looked it up.
Okay.
So, yeah. Otherwise, yeah, guys, I didn't take too much from this preseason. I mean, it's preseason.
Honestly, right? I usually don't watch preseason at all, but this year I watched a little bit. But it was at the beginning, right when I was like super excited for basketball, and then I saw like all the freaking bench guys playing like big minutes. And I was like, I'm gonna save up my minutes for the regular season. I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times you have to share the TV with the girlfriend. So I was watching a little Bachelor last night, so I can watch the NBA tonight. So preseason took a backseat to that, unfortunately.
I did forget one take because it was sort of covered up by the fact that I felt like the Wolves looked awful, but Jarrett Culver looked legit. I mean, I don't know what legit seems strong depending on your feeling about the word legit, but he actually looked like a functional basketball player this time around, which he did not look like last year. So
he looked big too. He got in the weight room.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, that's a good sign for a young guy. I mean, he was really small last year too,
and that hitch in his shot was gone. He was hitting threes too, so that's two huge signs.
He has a nice frame. He's tall. He has long arms, so getting the extra strength in there. I mean, he's playing against grown men. He needs that, so that was good to see.
Yep.
I really feel like I should have mentioned this before this segment, but I should have prefaced this by saying I didn't watch a single preseason game this year, but I'm just basically taking it off of highlights that I've seen. So I think that's important just for credibility among our 0 viewers currently.
We got 3 viewers up, by the way, so let's not handicap ourselves too much.
We got 3?
Okay.
Now we dropped down to 1 because you told them
give
off.
Give a shout out. Send a tweet.
Yeah. Oh, hey, we have a like. JT, was that you?
No, it really wasn't.
Oh, dude, we're doing something right already.
We're freaking popping right now, baby. Let's go.
Okay.
Somebody
keep
tweet
those likes coming, guys. We really appreciate it. So, all right. Well, let's keep going. We'll roll into our next segment. Just talk about our fantasy drafts a little bit. So we have a group of 8 guys that we do a fantasy basketball league with. It's a keeper league. So this is our JT. Is this our 3rd or 4th year?
It's our 4th year, I believe. Yeah, fourth year.
Fourth year. Okay, so we're in our fourth year of our fantasy basketball league. We just had our draft the other night, last night, or is it 2 nights ago now? 2 nights ago, Sunday night.
Yep.
And I just want to get your guys' take on, first off, how did your draft go? How did you feel you did? Dylan, we'll start with you.
I didn't have that many draft picks. My team was so good. I was already stacked. I had a bunch of keepers. But I was happy with the draft because I feel like a lot of guys went young with the draft, and it made sense because we have 2 new owners with like bad teams, and then even JT, you had 3 first-round picks. So I was able to take some like the vets, and it kind of made sense for me because one, I had guys that are going forward that were already keepers, but beyond that, next year is like the big draft. So getting guys in there that made sense for 1-year deals and could give me extra boost to my championship hopes this year, it made sense. So I was super happy with my draft. I took 1 rookie. I had to take a flyer. I took Tyrese Halliburton. I'm hoping that all the hype is true with him, and maybe that people talked about buddy trade a couple times, but so I think he's kind of a sleeper pick for me. Beyond that, what I look for in the draft though is positional flexibility. One, in the literal sense, so guys that can play multiple positions, shooting guard, forward, small forward. But beyond that, stats wise, so people that get steals and blocks, that have the percentages, and that also can put up points. So, I try to focus on first and second options. So one guy that I was really happy to get, and I know he fell quite a ways, was LaMarcus Aldridge. I know he's not a sexy pick. I know the Spurs are not really good. He's not going to be all NBA player, but he's the second option on the Spurs. And he puts up stats across the board, which I was happy about. Beyond that, you got to look at the health of the players and then setting up your draft for the next couple of years. So to me, I took some guys that were valuable this year, and that set me up for the draft next year. And I have keepers for this year, 2021, 2022. So my team is set up. The future is bright. The future.
I love it. All right, yeah. So Aldridge was your favorite pick? Did you have any other sleepers or?
Let me look at. I love getting Lowry and Aldridge for my first 2 picks. So I feel like people again were devaluing veterans, and they're not going to be high upside guys, but they're guys that are going to put up points and assists and rebounds and give me points. But beyond that, the Tyrese was the only pick that really didn't make sense, or that was kind of like out there. But yeah, my team's stacked.
Yeah. Well, I worry a little bit about like Lowry and his usage throughout I feel like getting older, he might take more days of rest, and that could, play a factor into your matchups throughout the season. But
to Dylan's point, on that, it's like I had a college economics professor, investing professor, that when you're talking about, investing in stocks, he always said, don't bet against the trend. I mean, until Lowry proves that he can't do it anymore, I mean, yeah, take him at an undervalue and roll with him.
Well, that's what I feel like. Him, Aldridge, and then who's my other guy I took? Oh, TJ Warren. I felt like all 3 of those guys fell because people were taking more sexy upside picks. I already had the upside with my team, so I took like steady veterans that I could potentially dump next year when it's the big draft next year with all like the best players going back in there. So it made sense for my team. It didn't make sense for every team. Like JT's, that one made sense for you.
So Dylan, why? All right, because you obviously had one of the best rosters in our league last year. Why wouldn't you take a shot at Kemba, who will be out till like mid-January, versus Lowry? What was your reasoning there?
Who took Kemba? I forgot who took Kemba.
I took Kemba. I just basically need you to give me a reason to make sure I made the right choice.
No, that made sense for your team also because you have a really good team already too. So you had the ability to afford somebody to rest and get healthy. Yeah. So that made sense. But for me, I just like Lowry better. I think he puts up more stats across the board. I think he does more. He gets more rebounds and he gets more steals. And for a position like a point guard, to get rebounds is more valuable because guys at the point guard position don't normally get rebounds, right? And then he gets more steals. So everything else is pretty even across the board except for probably points, I would say. And points are easy to come by in fantasy. So
I mean, Kemba's averaging over 3 threes a game as well.
yeah, no. Well, but that's what Lowry last year was at, what, like 2.5. So I mean, he probably had a little bit less. So if all things are even, I mean, they are pretty even, Kemba and Lowry. I just think that Lowry might be a better, more healthy choice in the long run. So,
How about you, JT? How was your draft?
Well, like Dylan said, I had 3 first-round picks because my team was god-awful. But, and I went back and I looked at, so there were 6 guys that I didn't carry over from last year's squad, and 4 of them went undrafted. So they were like, half my roster last year wasn't even worthy of being on anybody's roster. But I ended up going.
But JT,
yeah,
that's huge though, because if you have 3 picks in this draft, you can keep, if you hit on all 3 of those first round picks, you can keep those for 3 more years after this season. And then during our big draft next year, you'll already have 3 mainstays basically in your lineup to add, and you can add to that next season. So I mean,
I think that
was a big draft for you.
Yeah, I agree. My timeline looks good. The thing that doesn't necessarily look good is, for obviously the listeners out there that aren't aware, we have a salary cap based league. So these guys are going to take up cash, especially if I extend them. So that might be the problem I run into. But coming away with, I was absolutely stoked. So I was super happy to get Beal at 2, but I sort of expected to get Beal at 2. And then at 6, I could not believe that Jamal Murray fell to me there. And that guy,
was awesome.
Somebody like Drew Holiday and Vucevic and Sabonis all went above him. It was just really shocking to me. So I was super happy to get Jamal Murray there. And then with the rest of the roster, I was just trying to go with high floor and high ceiling guys. So that's why I went with like Tobias Harris. Doc Rivers is back there, and Harris played his best basketball under Doc when he was in Los Angeles. And Kelly Oubre playing next to Steph this year. DeJounte Murray, I think, can really take a step forward in San Antonio. I know a lot of people are high on him. And then I took Hassan Whiteside as just sort of a productive center and a guy who had maybe, think about extending a year or something, but really just being a solid vet for me this go around. So I think my team got a lot better. I think, next year, obviously, with all the guys that are coming up in our draft, it's still the name of the game. But I was happy with it.
Also, I love that our chat's bumping right now.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's awesome. All right, so yeah, Tucker Horton's going to be elite is just what this guy's saying. Sorry, Horton Tucker. I totally mixed that up. But yeah, I mean, I love it. I mean, we'll see.
I don't know if
we'll
I
see
love
what happens, but
hey, JT, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Jamal Murray, is it real? The bubble? Is his regular season going to be as?
I don't.
His consistency. So do you think he's going to be more consistent this year?
It's hard to say. I sort of expect him. I don't expect him to come out and average 30 a night. I just don't. I also don't expect him to come out and average 16 a night. I think he'll take a step forward. It'll be more consistent. It'll be higher volume. But he's still got plenty of capable players around him. He doesn't have to put that team on his back every night. It's still going to be Nuggets basketball that we've seen the last couple of years. So I wouldn't expect the show out Jamal Murray that we saw in the bubble to be there every night. But I would expect a step forward, especially for a guy who's still 23 years old. So, yeah,
I agree with that one. How about the Tobias Harris? But my issue always with Tobias Harris is he doesn't give you like the ancillary stats, like the steals, blocks, 3-pointers that you want.
And that was my one pick that I questioned of your 3 first-round picks too, JT.
I was sort of lost there because I felt like my best options were sort of guys in that same vein. The other guy I considered there was DeMar DeRozan, who I already had on the roster, and he's sort of the same kind of guy. I like Tobias Harris. I think he'll be used better under Doc. He shoots the ball. He hits more threes than DeMar does. And honestly, the biggest reason for me to take him at that point was that I took 2 guys at the top of the draft that I knew I would extend for 3 years. And so I needed a small forward. The only small forward I had on my roster going into that pick was Andrew Wiggins. So I needed somebody to play small forward. It would have been a lot easier. Jimmy Butler got taken the pick right before me at 8, and it would have been a lot easier to make the decision on Jimmy if he would have fallen to me at 8. So
that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, my draft, my strategy going in was to get a backup point guard first because I already had a strong guards on my roster. So I had Luca, Harden, Fox, Levine, twos and ones. But I knew I had the top end talent there. I just wanted to add a little depth to it. So getting Kemba, my roster I think is good enough to um, be all right until he gets back in mid-July. They're saying mid-January, excuse me. And then the second part of my strategy was just to go after a bunch of bigs because that's where I think my roster is at its weakest. I have my doubts about Andre Drummond this year and how well he'll be with the Cavs. I'm hoping he's still kind of the same highly productive rebounder, decent point scorer that he was in Detroit. Chips in some steals and blocks here and there. Obviously got Anthony Davis, so not worried about that. But other than that, I really have just a bunch of flyers on. I'm taking a bunch of flyers on a couple guys: Wendell Carter, Marvin Bagley, guys that I have no confidence in really, but I think might have high upside. So I wanted just to go out there and get a bunch of bigs that will hopefully hit. So I went after Boogie Cousins as just kind of another shot in the dark. I got, who else did I grab? I snagged Valanciunas, who will give me the points and rebounds I know, but he's probably a candidate to get dropped for me.
And I think you grabbed LeVert late too, right?
Yeah, he was a guy I grabbed late. I liked his eligibility at both the guard and forward position, and I thought he could maybe settle in as that 3 spot behind Durant and Irving this season.
I really like that play too. I'd considered it honestly a lot earlier than you ended up taking him, but I mean, if a trade were to pan out with Houston where Harden goes there, he ends up being like basically a number 1 guy on Houston. So, I mean...
Yeah. Yep, that too. I mean... Yeah, and so I thought it was a kind of a low-risk, high-upside play there with LeVert. And that's kind of what all my picks were in the back half because there's just not great options to choose from. And I'm just looking for some sleepers here and there. So, we'll see. I only had 4 picks, so it's not like I had some big strategy. Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
Is there anybody with a bigger differential between fantasy and actual basketball than Drummond, though? Because he's actually so good in fantasy basketball, and then I don't really think him as much of a player. But so every time I see him on a roster, I'm like, and then I look at stats, I'm like, well, he puts up stats.
He's been he's been the kind of guy that, like, you have guys who are so elite in one category that they can honestly really help you to weekly wins, and he's one of those guys in rebounding. It's insane.
Dude, those rebound numbers help me out big time. They can almost single-handedly win a matchup if it's like the weekend matchup, because we do the Monday through Thursday game and then the Friday through Sunday. On those Friday through Sunday, if I get 2 Drummond games, that's like 30 plus rebounds just from one guy. Yeah. So he's been huge.
Was somebody explain to our viewers like our insane fantasy game, like how we actually use like an actual cap space and we have like a multi-year deals and all that stuff? Will somebody explain it? I'm bad at it.
Sure.
We'll let the commish explain.
Yeah, I'll step in. So our fantasy basketball league is through Fantrax, and if you haven't heard of that, it's honestly pretty sweet. It's basically got a whole bunch of like sort of real life mimicking features that you can use. So we have a salary cap set for each team at 130 million. Every player's salary was sort of started at, it's developed using an algorithm that bases it off of their standard deviation increments in each statistical category that we score on. So you get guys that are, I think at the top, the first kind of go around in our contracts, guys were set, like Harden was like 22 million. I think Russ might have been like 19 million. And then it sort of scales down from there to a minimum, you have minimum salary of about 3.5. So we have this essential, salary hierarchy like a real league would. And then we have the ability to re-sign players to multi-year deals after you've drafted them and had them on your roster for a year. So you can choose after that first sort of rookie contract or whatever if you want to extend them for 1, 2, 3-year deals before they're released back into the draft pool that subsequent year. So when we talk about next year's draft for us being huge, that's because it's going to be year 5, and that means that all those guys who are extended for 3 years the first time around are now coming up and going to be back in that in that draft pool. So that's going to be Harden. That's going to be Westbrook and Jokic and Towns and all these huge dudes. Some of probably half of the top 30 players in the league are going to be up again. So it's going to be fun.
It's going to be the biggest draft of our lifetimes.
Oh, hell yeah.
Well, and then how I describe it to everybody too is like it's the closest you can get to being a GM without actually being a GM. Is we actually have everything try to mimic the actual league. So it's really cool, and for basketball nerds like us, it's
Absolutely.
fun.
Yeah, Dylan was making fun of me because of how much I was prepping for the draft, but I honestly spent like days just like crunching numbers and like looking at salaries and like thinking about, okay, if I'm extending player A, B, and C, what does this mean for next year's draft when I've got four picks in the top 3 rounds? Oh my God, it's awesome.
So
he spent 2 days doing research and picked Tobias Harris at the third pick.
Yeah, I think that was the question mark of the draft in that first pick. But
Oh.
I loved your first. Don't get me wrong, JT. I loved your first 2 picks. I'm high on Murray, and then who did you grab it right away?
Bradley Beal.
Yeah, I love that pick. But you're gonna have Bradley Beal, Jamal Murray locked up for 3 years after this year, and then we're gonna go into that big draft, and you're gonna get another star. You're gonna get another couple stars, so it's gonna be huge.
If you look at that draft, the top 3 rounds, the first 3 rounds will be full of basically stars.
Yeah.
So that's going to be crazy. But
And then, I got Doncic for 1 more year, so I'll have him going into that draft, and then Fox. So I got a few guys that will kind of carry over. And then there's one thing I wanted to mention as well, but it just escaped me about our fantasy
who's the
league.
favorite? Who's winning it?
So I don't know how accurate it is, but on Fantrax I checked out their and you know where this is going. But I checked out their projected totals throughout the season, and it's all combined. And obviously there's going to be injuries, and there's going to be a whole bunch of things, different factors that can't be accounted for. But just based off of projected stats, I was number 1. So I'm just saying.
But I was gonna say I actually saw that too when I looked at it. But then it mattered who you were starting. So then I put in my starters, and then no, it'll be between me, you, and Krish though. We all have good teams, I think.
it's a 3-horse race again.
I mean, we're definitely at the top. It'll be 3. It'll be, and we're going just 1 division this year. We're not going 2 divisions. Correct?
And we've struggled to get those last couple of like solid owners in there. But I looked at the drafts that like Skeen and Leach had, and just sort of looking at the teams across the league. I'm hoping that this is going to be by far the most competitive year we have too. So from like top to bottom.
Shout out Skeen, shout out Leach.
Yep.
Those guys are six. Oh, and Dan the Man.
Dan the Man, always Dannin and Mannin.
Absolutely, it should be a fun year. I'm excited. I'm glad we're going to 1 division just because now I don't have to worry about the whole. I mean, our division was stacked, and your guys' division was not great, but
That's putting it
it'll
lightly,
be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, with only 4 picks, I'm gonna wrap this up here. But with only 4 picks in this draft, I didn't research too much into it like JT did, just because. I mean, I'm probably gonna keep throughout the season. I'm probably gonna drop Valanciunas soon, and then some other of the guys that I drafted late. So we'll see. Boogie's a question mark.
See, that's the difference though. Is you guys had your cores set. You kind of knew what your teams were. My team was at an inflection point. Like if I didn't hit on this draft with all the picks I had, I was gonna be in trouble. So I had to pay attention.
took a bunch of low risk, high upside guys. That was kind of my plan. So, all right, guys, let's move over to our over unders. We'll talk about I think I pulled them from FanDuel. Let me pull them up here real quick. So these will be the implied win totals for each team this season. I just wanted to get your guys' takes on who you think will exceed expectations, who will underachieve this year, where they were right, where they were wrong, all that good stuff. So, Dylan, we'll start with you. Best bets for the over-unders this year based on the implied win totals. And, again, we're going off of FanDuel. And this was as of, before you start, Dylan, this was as of, I pulled them on Monday, so yesterday, the 21st as well, so 12/21.
Yeah, so I started on a different site, so I had a little bit different, but everyone was within like a game or two. So the ones that stood out to me, I actually went through over/under for each team. Every time I had like a really good over/under, I put hammer on there. So that's my. So my first one is the Nets. So I might be a little bit overreaction to the preseason, but between Durant and Kyrie, they both look completely healthy. So they have the best 1-2 in the league well, sorry, not in the league, just in the East. Beyond that, they have a really deep team. Like I couldn't believe their talent coming off the bench between LeVert, between Allen and Spencer Dinwiddie, like going in between the starting unit and the bench. So I think with their depth and their top end talent, that's perfect for this type of season. And both Durant and Kyrie are really trying to prove that they're back and that they're the elite talent in the league. So I think they're also going to be trying hard the whole year because, a lot of times you worry about Kyrie and Durant not taking the regular season serious. But I think they will this year. So I hammered the Nets.
Especially if tonight is any indication.
Yeah, no kidding.
They look good. They look really good. So I'm starting with the East, by the way. The only other hammer I had, there's two other hammers in the East. The Wizards, they were only projected for. So I converted this year's totals to like a regular 82 game season, so I could just conceptualize it better. But the Wizards were only projected for 37 wins in a normal regular season. I think they're at least a 500 team. I think they're probably better than a 500 team. Between Russ and Beal, both top 30 players, and then some young players that have high upside who are looking to prove something. They have young legs. I think the Wizards will beat their projections for the over.
That was my biggest hammer too, because you look at a team helmed by Russ and Beal, and they've got some solid supporting talent around them. I like Rui. I obviously like Denny. And then you got, Bertans, which ESPN is really high on, and Thomas Bryant, which is he's a serviceable center. You have talent there. I don't understand basically pegging them as a 500 win or a 500 team in the East. It just doesn't make sense to me.
They're below a 500, like 37 wins in the regular season, and that's what they're like. That's what the site I was using. That's what they were at. And beyond that, even Scott Brooks is a good coach. Yeah. And coaching matters a lot, especially in a condensed season like this. So, yeah, the Wizards, I hammered their over. The only under I really had in the East, or other hammer I had, JT, you're not going to like this, but the Bulls. So I just don't believe in their team or their core. I think a lot of their players overlap between Kobe White and Levine. I think that Lauri Markkanen, he's got a little bit too much credit. They're just such a weird fit. Even when I watch them, the pieces don't fit together. Not only that, they have a new coach, new system, so no offseason. That's going to hurt them. And beyond that, they just don't play defense. So a long regular season, they're only projected for 34.7 wins on the site I use, but I think they're going to go much below that. I just don't think they're that good. I think it was really funny to me. The Hornets and Chicago had the same, they had the same record last year. Actually, the Hornets had a game better, but Chicago's supposed to win like 4 or 5 more games. It just doesn't add up to me. I don't think Chicago's being very good.
I kind of agree with you in the fact that their pieces might not necessarily fit all that well. But I'm not sure they're trying to right now. It's sort of like when you get a bad team, you don't worry about fit. You just take the best guys you can in these drafts and you roll the dice and you see how they play out. I'm not sure Lauri's getting too much credit at this point. He's pretty. Honestly, I feel like he got a lot of hype sort of as a rookie, and now you don't hear much about him at all. I think from what I've seen of Kobe White, he looks like he's improved quite a bit. The problem is with him and Levine is you got two guys who are volume scorers who have questionable playmaking abilities. But there's upside there. I think I agree with you that it's not going to necessarily pan out this year. But they've got some development there that I think will pan out at some point, just probably not in 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, and what I always see too is like I look at for a shortened season like this, really condensed. You want to look at continuity and you want to look at vets because young players are not consistent, right? They're not consistent. They're not bringing it every day. And beyond that, if you don't have a continuity with your teammates, there's going to be chemistry issues, and they're not going to be able to win on a regular basis. So that Chicago hits both those points where they're young and they don't have much continuity. between injuries and also bringing new players, new system, new coach. So I don't see that win total for me.
I'm not sure the new coach thing is going to hit him that hard because it didn't seem like any of the players wanted to play for.
He was so
What's his
bad.
face anyway? Yeah.
Yeah, he was probably the worst coach in the league. So you're probably right, but even so, I don't see what was that guy's name?
I can't
Scott
remember.
Bolin I hate that
Who
guy.
are we talking about again?
The Bulls coach.
The Bulls coach. Remember he made him do like toughies after a game
Yeah.
and stuff, he's in high school, like the players in high school.
Yeah.
Oh, Todd Bolin, right?
That doesn't sound right at all.
God damn it! I'm gonna have to look it up. I can't.
Todd Bowles. He's a D coordinator.
No, I
D
know.
coordinator for the Bucks.
I know. I'm getting stuff mixed up. Now I gotta look it up. Otherwise, I'm gonna be bothered the rest of the time. JT, go with your over-unders quick.
Well, so I already gave you one of them in the Wizards. I just sort of concurred with you there. My other hammer I had was the Grizzlies at over 32.
Yep.
And I might be overreacting to the Wolves games I watched, but I told you guys, I think I texted you guys that I'm sitting there watching that second game against the Grizzlies, and here's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm like, okay, Wolves got talent. Wolves aren't going to, come out here and get punked 2 games in a row by the Grizzlies. And then it was like the Grizzlies came out there and just like, I don't know if they demoralized the team that much, but they demoralized me to like an extreme degree. Whereas like I don't necessarily think like a ton of those players on the team aren't really like flashy names, but they just seem to play well together. They play with some fire, and they play with a lot of pace behind Morant. Brooks always kills us, but once you get Jaren Jackson Jr. back, Brandon Clark, coming into his second year, I think that team's going to be a lot better than I think they're getting credit for right now.
Yeah, JT, in the West, I had the Grizz and the Pelicans. I know we talked about that a little bit preseason, but I think both Morant and Zion are going to be stars, and they looked like the best players on the court in the preseason.
Yep.
Every Morant controlled. His deal was, he was such an athlete, and he was such a good basketball player, but he didn't change his tempo. He didn't control the game like a point guard should, and that's what he did in the.
Well, that was the amazing part is, for a second-year point guard like that, and for a guy who never really played like high level, I mean, not to say, he competed against some good teams, but he was in a mid-major in college. To step in and to become that guy in an NBA offense so quick, it was amazing the command he had. The one sequence that just like made my jaw drop was at the end of the half in that second game, where he comes off a screen, gets a switch onto Juancho, and it was like Juancho was stuck in quicksand. And like he just blows by him and throws down like this huge two-handed dunk, and nobody else wanted to even had the opportunity to touch him. The guy's a freak athlete, but honestly unbelievably skilled, one of the best finishers around the rim I've ever seen, and it's fun to watch.
Well, I saw that, and then how much he's improved as a passer too.
Yeah.
He knew what to do every single time, and that takes a while. And usually, point guards, those are like the longest position to develop, where it takes third, fourth, fifth year before they really get to the top of the game. And he was there already. Like he controlled the game. He knew exactly what he wanted to do every time he went down the court. He was getting in the lane, kicking out, and I was so impressed with him. I wasn't even that big of a jaw guy. And then I saw him this preseason, and he had gotten bigger, got a better haircut, and he just and he controlled the pace. And I agree with you on the Grizz, for sure.
It's really the only other one I had.
Anything else, JT, from you?
I don't know if this is a hammer, but I had one. I only had a couple of unders, but one of them was the Thunder. Because I couldn't name anybody besides SGA on that team, and I was like, I don't know how that team wins 22 games, just him alone. So I'm gonna hammer the under on them too.
Oh, I have a bunch of West teams too. If anybody cares, you guys want me to go through that too?
Sure, hit us.
Yeah,
Okay.
Go ahead, Dylan.
All
Yep,
right,
go ahead.
Lakers, hammer it. We talked about this already. Talent, depth, they're awesome. The Pelicans with Zion, and then the fourth one that I'm just going to tell you to hammer is the Rockets. I know that Harden might be traded, but there's a good chance it's not going to be for a couple weeks, maybe to a couple months, maybe to the end of the year. So if Harden's on the team, they're winning 50 games. Doesn't matter who's on their team.
You remember
So-
it's a 72-game season, right?
You know what I'm saying? 50 games in 82.
Okay.
Yeah, no. So they're at 34 wins, and honestly, if you take Harden out of the picture, with the team and talent they have, they could probably get to that 34 wins for this year. So if you add Harden into that for whatever portion of the season he's going to be there, I think the Rockets are going to outdo their projections, as long as everybody stays healthy.
That over-under just felt like it had the uncertainty built into it, because it was, if he stays, obviously that number is over. If he leaves immediately, obviously that number is under. So
Do you think it's obvious under, though,
yes,
if he leaves?
I do.
You think so? Sam, what do you think? Hey, Sam.
It would be close. I would probably lean towards the under, but I think that at 35.5 would be pretty close to where I would probably project them to be.
Well, and you have to think too, if they
Can
try.
you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're lagging a little bit, but we're all right.
Yeah, but you got to think too, if they trade Harden, they're getting back, potentially Ben Simmons or Caris LeVert or Jared Allen. There's a lot of, they're going to get some good assets and some good players. So
that's true.
They have. I think I would just go with over on that.
That's probably fair.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And I don't know if I would even bet it. I might stay away from it. But depending on who they get in return, then I would certainly consider it. Who else did you have in the West, Dylan? I have the Lakers, Rockets, Pelicans, and Grizzlies. Did I miss anyone?
No. A couple like the unders that I would probably go for. JT have OKC, and then the Spurs. I don't know. I actually that seems like if you're a really bad degenerate gambler if you gamble on the Spurs. So I shouldn't even say that, but I just don't really like their team. I think they have some old guys. I don't really like their young guys, but they just have a system in place and they have continuity. So it would go against everything I said earlier in the podcast. So
What was their number at?
I have it listed at 29.5.
29.5? That's pretty high.
That feels right though, because what were they last year? They won like 34 games or something like that. So they'd probably be similar last year.
I'd probably hit the under on that too, but it's I don't know that's not a hammer for me.
Go ahead, Dylan.
Okay, I'll go. All right. But yeah, the big takeaway for me though was how good the West was. I can't even decide who I want in the playoffs. Well, that's another topic, but then trying to do the over and unders is just so difficult because there's so many good teams and everybody's trying to win. So it's really the East. There's teams you can bet on, but the West it was difficult.
One guy that I didn't get your opinion on any of our other podcasts that I kind of want to get your opinion on real quick. And JT, I actually saw that you took him in our fantasy draft. He was in my player queue, a guy I was considering, but DeJounte Murray or DeJounte Murray, however.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy. He's a guy I had last year on my team for a little bit, and I kind of liked his upside in terms of how he could, fantasy wise, he could stuff the stat sheet. Pretty good defensively. I think he's 6'5". He's lengthy as a point guard. Throughout the season, he lost playing time, and he was playing like low 20s in minutes, which was kind of a bummer. But I imagine he's going to get more minutes this year with the Spurs, especially since we think that, and this implied total is pretty low. There's no reason not to play him, and he's, I think, well recovered from his previous injuries. How do you guys feel about him this year? Is he anyone that is worth even talking about?
Well, we might talk about him a little bit later, but I love him. Obviously, okay. I took him. And honestly, when I was sort of crunching the numbers in the draft and I was sort of looking at who's in my queue, I was so positive that I wanted to draft that dude that I was thinking, okay, do I have to trade up here? Because I do not want to miss him at 19. Because he's a guy. Yeah. So he's 23, 24 years old. He's got by far the most upside on that Spurs team. And like you said, this long athletic point guard, he's going to stuff the stat sheet. He's not going to shoot much. But you look at his numbers throughout his first 3 years in the league, he came in so raw. And it reminds me a lot of you look at like Jimmy Butler's progression, right, when he was young and with the Bulls. It's that same sort of build up from just sort of a, he's a piece, getting some spot minutes as a rookie, and things just progress from there. And he's taken a step forward every single year. And I'm starting to think that, it's either this year or next that he's going to really come into his own and be that leader for that Spurs team. But
yeah, and he was a guy I was really high on last year. I hope I just wasn't 1 year off on him, and he hits this year. But yeah, I have a feeling I know where you're going to go with maybe most improved player, JT. But we'll talk about
alert.
that when we get there.
Honestly, though, I don't see Murray. I watched him last year. He doesn't really have a shot. He doesn't have much offensive game. He wouldn't even shoot from the mid range, right? So if you can't shoot or even be willing to shoot in today's NBA, and he's not 6'10" Ben Simmons, like, what are you? I mean, you're Chris Dunn. You're a specialist. So to me, I don't really see the upside. And he wasn't like he was a great playmaker either. So I'm gonna have to disagree with you on this one. I was high on him last year. I actually bet on him being the most improved player, but he took a step back from his development in my opinion, and I just didn't see the upside. I saw the specialist in the defensive role, but other than that, I didn't really see much.
I think he's a willing mid-range shooter. It's just he doesn't have range at this point. But his value is going to be around the rim regardless. So and I agree. I'm not sure what kind of playmaker he is, but just from a statistical standpoint, point guard for the Spurs, the way they move the ball and stuff, you're gonna fill up the box score a little bit there too. So.
All right. I'm actually taking our picks down on a Excel spreadsheet so we can reference these later. I just interested as we kind of go throughout the season with these podcasts. We'll maybe touch base with them and see how our bets are doing. JT, what were your picks for the West again? I know you had the Grizzlies. Anyone else?
I gave you I never said it, but I'd say under on the Clippers at 48. I'm just not high on them. And then I went under on the Bucks at 51. Only because I'm not even sure I'm under them at 51. But basically that 51 number relative to all the other over-unders told me that they're expected to be the best team in the league, and I'm just not sure I see that. I guess that's sort of a question as to whether or not that's really the ceiling for any of the teams is 51 wins, and that might not be the case. So that's all I had, though.
Yeah, that's probably one that I would stay away from, just because those teams who haven't won a championship yet that have championship potential, they usually overperform during the regular season until they kind of make that leap in the playoffs. So, but yeah, certainly a high total, the highest on the sheet with the Bucks at 50.5. How about the East? Did you have anyone in the East?
I went over on the Hawks at 35.
Okay. And then
I went under on those.
It could go either way. I just think they've got some players now. They obviously made a couple of win now moves, and I like Trae Young. Obviously, sort of a dynamic scorer, and it's just going to be sort of interesting to see how it plays out. I'm not really positive on them at an over, but I think I could see the pieces falling together a little more clearly now than they have for the Hawks in a while. So,
and I would probably tend to side with Dylan on this one and taking the under. Dylan, how about you? As far as the East goes, did you have anyone that I missed?
No, I went through every single team, so I might send you that over at some point, just or save it on one of our documents or something. But I kind of hit the main ones that I were confident about. But I don't know. The upper crust of the East, I basically went over on mostly everybody, and then the lower I went under because the teams in the bottom are bad, and they're really bad. So I just don't see where those wins are coming from. I mean, the lowest total was it 22 or 23 for
21.5. Yep.
21.5 for Cleveland, and their team is garbage.
I have OKC at 21.5, the Knicks at 21.5, Cleveland at 22.5, and then Pistons at 23.5, and then it kind of takes a leap forward to the Hornets at 26.5.
Oh, I take the Detroit over if they're at that low. They still have players on their team. I mean, they just Blake Griffin alone,
Yeah.
But yeah, I hit the main ones for the most part.
All right. I just want to get your guys' take on the T-Wolves, and then we'll move on. I have them listed here at 29.5. JT, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. It could really go either way. From what I saw in the preseason, I'd say under. I don't know that we saw either Towns or Russell at their best, and I'm assuming they still. So even with the preseason now, I mean, did they play together like 2 of those games? So now they've got a total of 3 games together. So it.
I need an over or under.
29 and a half?
Yep.
I guess over. I don't feel good about it though. So.
Okay, Dylan, how about you?
Way under. I should have banged that one too. Youngest team in the league. Only 2 guys in their team have been on the team for more than 1 year, which is Okogie and Cat. The rest are all new guys. Yeah, I'm just go under. The West is too good. I don't feel I'm not happy about saying that, but I would bang the under.
How do you? And I don't know this, and I should have known this, but how is the schedule distributed this year? Are we playing the West more heavily than the East?
I think that they're trying to do more interconference and even like the.
Well, that's gonna hurt us.
Yeah, more interconference, but also like regionally, we're playing more games regionally, I believe. And then beyond that, the only other real change is they're trying to get teams that are in closer cities that they're just gonna go like they're gonna try to play the games that are close to each other. That's a bad way to explain it, but like if they're playing the Lakers, they're gonna play Clippers next day. That's a good example of it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, and I'm gonna go the under as well. So
that's probably the smart move.
Yeah,
I'm wearing my Cat jersey tomorrow, though.
And who do we got tomorrow?
Pistons?
Yes, I think that's right.
I forgot what show I was watching earlier. I think it was NBA Tip-Off. And who was the old Wolves coach that was on there? Along with Isaiah Thomas,
Dwayne Casey?
Sam Mitchell.
Oh, Sam Mitchell, yeah.
Yeah, he was on there, and he was wearing a Cat jersey. So they all were repping a jersey that they wanted to for the opening night. A lot of LeBron jerseys, and then he was wearing a Cat jersey. So that was pretty cool. But I'm gonna take the under on that. So.
Oh, by the way, I got for the first podcast.
Love it. We can't really see it though, but
I saw it.
But
now
now we know what it is. So that's awesome. And if anyone's wondering why I highlighted the Wolves, we're all Wolves fans. We're all from Minnesota, so obviously we're LeBron fans as well.
Invested.
Well, 2 of us. I don't know about JT, but we'll move on, guys. I recorded all of our picks, so like I said, as we go throughout the season, we'll kind of touch back on some of these picks and see how they're going. And we'll go from there. So we will now jump over to our playoff and championship predictions. This is always one of my favorite segments of the year, as we kind of talk about this amongst our friend group. It's always fun, good conversation. A lot of teams in the mix this year for the playoffs. We have the new 10-team format, I believe, with that play-in tournament mid-season. And so it should be interesting this year, 73 games. I'm excited to get your guys' take on who will make the playoffs come the East and West. We don't have to go through all the teams. I just want to kind of get your top teams. And we kind of touched on some of the in the over-under segment, some of the teams that we like and some of the teams that we think will underachieve. So with that being said, Dylan, I kind of want to we'll start with the Western Conference. I'll get your take on that, and then we'll go over to JT.
Hey, can I do the top 10 teams and you guys just tell me, critique me?
Yes. Yep.
We're doing it that way? Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah. Well, we'll start with the Western Conference. You got top 10 for Eastern and Western?
Yeah, yep.
Okay. Go ahead. We'll start with Western.
Okay, I got the Lakers number 1, lock. The Clippers number 2. Oh, God, I should debate on that. I'm going to go Clippers number 2, Nuggets 3, Mavs 4, Jazz 5. So those are pretty chalk picks, but here's my 2 big ones that you guys gotta debate me on. 6, I got the Pelicans. 7, the Grizz. 8, Blazers. 9, Warriors. 10 Suns.
First reaction, I think, is Suns are too low, only because, and we had this conversation this summer a little bit, but Chris Paul being there, playing alongside Booker, Ayton maybe taking a step forward in year 3, I could see that team filling out nicely this year. West is tough, I know, but 10 just feels low. I think I'm high in the Grizzlies. I'd put them over the Pelicans at number 6. I'd also probably put the Blazers over the Pelicans and slide them up to 7. But other than that, your top 5 seemed rock solid.
Yeah, just looking through here, first reactions. I think, honestly, Dylan, you and I probably don't differ too much in this. I love Lakers at 1 just because of the depth they added this season. Clippers at number 2. I think Clippers are going to make sure they earn that number 2 so they don't have to meet the Lakers before the conference championship. So I think that's an ideal 1 and 2. To me, the Nuggets and Mavs can go either way. I really like the Mavs this year. I think they'll take another step forward. But I probably prefer the Clippers in that 3rd spot. I'm with JT. I'd probably lean Grizz over Pels right now. I just got to see Zion for a full year throughout the season, so that could certainly change. But otherwise, I think, yeah, you nailed it. Blazers, I think, will definitely come up this year from where they were last year, but not much. I know they were the 8th seed last year, so I don't see them coming up a whole lot just because of the teams ahead of them. But record-wise, and just I think they'll be a better team. Other than that, yeah, I have no strong reactions to that. I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah, well, the really difficult part was that I think there's a lot of teams are going to be bunched up. So I think the Lakers will be the clear number 1. Then there's that step between the Clippers and Jazz from 2 to 5, where they're going to be within a game or 2 of each other. And then the 6 through 10, I mean, you can put those in any order you want, in my opinion. It's just they're going to be so close, so bunched up. They're all good teams. It's hard to, pick. My deal was that Zion, I just believe in that guy. He's such an amazing player and athlete. And if he looks like he's in shape, as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be a top 15 guy, in my opinion, this year. So if we're looking at the best guy out of those teams, and I guess you'd put Steph in there and Dame. God damn. This is so good. I don't know what to do, but I guess that's just off the cuff. That's what I thought. I thought the Golden State, depending on if their players are healthy, they could be in that top 2 to 5. But they haven't been healthy. Steph hasn't been through a whole regular season. So I don't know. I'm not that high on the Blazers either. So it's just really difficult to make those picks. But the top 10 at least seem good to me, and the top 5 seem good. And then after that, any order would make sense to me.
Yeah. I think too, the top 5 after the Lakers at 1, I could see 2 through 5. Really, if 2 through 5, you could throw any order at me through those guys, and I wouldn't think you're crazy in any of them. So.
Yep, same here. I could see the Blazers moving up to the 6th spot, but again, I'm just there. It's all going to be within, I think, a couple games, so it could go really either way. But I would tend to agree with kind of the order that you have it.
Well, my only issue with the Blazers is I don't think they can play defense. And last year there was a sieve. I know they got Robert Covington, but that doesn't really cover up everything on their team. So their 2 points of attacks, CJ and Dame, they both are not great at defense. They're undersized. And so if you don't have those guys at the front stopping the ball, then you need someone at the back end to defend the rim. And Nurkic is decent, but he's maybe above average at best. So to me, that's where I see their big deficiency. They're gonna be awesome on offense, but on defense, it's gonna be an issue this season. So that's why I'm a little lower on them than a lot of other people are. But and I also saw Covington. He was on the Timberwolves, and you saw him on the Houston. He's a great team defender, But when he's not an individual defender, they want him to be a stopper. And to me, he's not a stopper. He's a team defender. And if you don't have the team around him, he's not going to shine as brightly. So that's kind of my reasoning with them.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. I don't think there's any question that they're going to be an average to below average defensive team.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously they're going to be. I think they're going to be great offensively, and I would kind of just lean towards the veteran leadership of Dame and McCollum versus some of these young teams. The Grizz. Obviously, we expect Morant to take that next step, but there are some question marks with some of those other young guys, Jaren Jackson Jr. and just some of the other guys that I'm not. I lean more towards the veteran team in this situation, and Cove helps a little bit, but we'll see how that plays out.
I'm not gonna lie, I watched preseason and Lillard pulled up from like 35 and just splashed, and I was like, man, that guy's a flamethrower. I'm a little nervous about this, but I'm gonna stick to my guns. I'm gonna get the takeoff.
During the preseason, I had this vision watching the Wolves of Rubio pulling up from the logo and hitting like a Dame 3, and it was the greatest thing I could possibly imagine. I just want to see it someday.
Were you high?
No, but I might have been.
To put you on the spot, Dylan, if we had a healthy Klay Thompson this year, where would the Warriors slot in, and who would be out if you put him in?
I think they're in that 2 through 5 range. Clay's so important to their team with the spacing, with the defense, and just the way their system works and how they pass the ball. And like he's so important to that it really does hurt when he's out. And so I think they slip. And yeah, the biggest thing is gonna be defense for them too, along with the Blazers. They don't have, other than Draymond, they don't have any really above average defenders on their team.
Yep. Okay. All right, if you want to move on to the East, I don't really have any other comments about the West.
All right, you want me to go top 10, or JT, do you have a top 10 for the East?
No, you do it.
Okay. All right, 1 Bucks, 2 Nets, 3 Celts, 4 Heat, 5 Raptors, 6 76ers, 7 Wiz, 8 Pacers, 9 Hawks, 10 Magic. And by the way, I was forced to make a 9 and 10 in the East. It wasn't pretty. I wasn't happy about it, but I had to pick 2 teams. It's actually the rules of the league, so that's why the Hawks and Magic are 9 and 10.
Can you give me 1 through 4 again?
Yeah, Bucks at 1, Nets at 2, Celtics at 3, Heat at 4.
So my first reaction is, and this is just, again, this isn't a big deal, but I'd probably take the 7, or actually I would, as of right now, take the 76ers over the Raptors. The Raptors lost Gasol and Ibaka. Those were 2 pretty big losses. I do expect Van Vliet to take another step forward. Lowry's kind of getting older. Again, as JT mentioned earlier, I'm not going to give up on him until I see it. But to me, the 76ers probably jump up a little bit, maybe even above the Heat, to be quite honest with you. And I'm dropping the Raptors down a little bit. Otherwise, your top 3 I'm on board with. We can argue order, but I think Bucks would be my number 1, and I'd probably put Nets in my number 2. So pretty solid. Again, I don't really have a strong reaction other than the Raptors.
Yeah, so my deal with the 76ers is that Embiid and Simmons have had trouble staying on the court, and with a condensed schedule, and then also the new team, and then Doc Rivers, who's going to treat their stars like stars. I'm not sure if they're going to take the regular season as serious as some teams, and they should because they're young dudes. But sorry, what?
Well, I was just going to ask you real quick. Would you say that the supporting cast around Simmons and Embiid is better this year than in years past?
Yeah, it's better. It's honestly, it's not as talented as last year if you look at an individual basis, but it just fits better with the team. And honestly, if you have Simmons and Embiid, you're going to cover up a lot of deficiencies. But it felt like they got a lot of players that were one-dimensional. Like Seth Curry is a shooter, not much a defender. Danny Green, you can kind of say the same thing, and he also doesn't have much off the bounce, verb that you need from a secondary playmaker. And then I think they're going to be short on playmaking in general. Who their backup point guard is Melton. In the starting lineup, I guess the secondary playmaker is Tobias Harris. To me, that's not great for a contending team. So they could surprise me, but I just see between injuries, new system, Doc Rivers, I'm just not as confident in them as some other teams. And the Raptors, I know you said the Raptors. Nick Nurse is just a stud, and he
absolutely agree.
So, and he brought guys off their bench that you never heard of, like is it Boucher,
I think.
Yeah, Terrence Davis, even Van Fleet, and he wasn't picked in the draft. So he brought all those guys and made them, rotation players, and I think he's going to do that for this regular season too. So I'm higher on the Raps than I think a lot of people, but I think they're going to be good this year.
Yeah, my only two reactions were, and I'm not. This isn't even me overreacting to just this game, but I honestly felt like going in that the Nets will be the number one. I just watched Durant, and knowing the supporting cast he has around him, if Durant is that dude, if he's that killer that he was, the Nets are going to be so good. And then again, I'm high on the Wizards, and I'd have them. Honestly, I'm thinking they can be a top 5 seed in the East. So that's where I think their landing spot is. But
well, I thought 7 was kind of high. I don't see them better than the Raptors and Sixers, but I mean they do have the top 2 guys. That makes sense, but they have so many question marks from their young guys that I couldn't put them any higher. And then the Nets, I agree with you, but I thought they also might take the approach with the condensed schedule to rest Durant certain days, rest Kyrie in certain days, especially with coming back from injury. The Bucks, they're a regular season team. They've been proven to win 60 games every year, or last 3 years. So I think there's a better bet. Nets, I think, have a higher ceiling in the playoffs, but if we're talking regular season, I like the Bucks.
Could be fair.
Dylan, I'm going through both the Western Conference and Eastern Conference picks here, and I think we probably have the same playoff teams. I don't have anyone on the outside of my playoff predictions that are in yours. So I think 16 for 16, honestly. How about you, JT? Did you have anyone that Dylan left out that you would see in the playoffs, or do you kind of agree with the 16 that he laid out?
No, I think they're solid too. Yeah, you can argue order, but solid lists.
You can definitely argue order for some of these as we did, but as far as the teams, I think I'm on board with those. So with that being said, we'll kind of go into our playoff picks and how you kind of see the playoffs unfolding. Dylan, since you laid out your picks, we'll start with you. Kind of just take us through your playoffs. We'll stop short of the NBA Finals, and we'll talk about that after.
Yeah. So it'd be Lakers, Blazers. We saw that this year already. Not gonna be particularly close. Clippers, Grizz, which would be a really interesting matchup. The Clippers, it depends on Beverly, but they might not have a guy to match up with Ja, that'd be really interesting. But they're still too young to make any type of real playoff run against the Clippers. Nuggets, Pelicans. Oh man, these are gonna be so fun if this actually happens. But Nuggets again, experience. The Mavs, Jazz. I'd go chalk the first round. Beyond that, 2 to 3, Clippers, Nuggets rematch. I'm so stuck on that. Do you guys think the Nuggets are real deal? Do you really think they're better than the Clippers?
Yes.
Sam?
I'm taking the Clippers.
Okay. That's me too. Again, I think we talked about this in different podcasts, so I guess the listeners haven't heard this. Me and Sam think that the Nuggets being the Clippers was a little bit of a fluke. We thought that there was some chemistry issues, there's some coaching issues, there's some adjustment issues that it's not going to happen again. And I think that the Clippers just have a higher ceiling between Kawhi, Paul George, and then their bench, and even switching out a couple players like Ibaka for Harrell and Luke Kennard for Shamet could potentially make them better. So to me, I thought they were better last year, and I think they're better this year. JT, lay out the case for the Nuggets.
My case for the Nuggets is just that they're already a young team, and you're not only gaining experience, but they're getting experience together, which I don't think you can discount, especially in high pressure situations. I mean, Jamal Murray with another year of playoff experience, Nikola Jokic with another year of playoff experience. If Michael Porter Jr. actually comes in and he sort of develops as that third star this year for them, healthy Gary Harris, Will Barton if he's coming back. I don't see them. I don't see the Clippers being a deeper team than the Nuggets, and I think chemistry may be overblown when you're talking about the star power of some of these teams in the NBA. But I honestly think the Nuggets have had better chemistry and have put it to better use than any other team in the league the last couple of years.
So I would actually argue that the Clippers have a little more depth this year than they did a year ago.
Sure.
Especially in a playoff series against the Nuggets. I think with their roster, how it's currently constructed, they'd be a little more deeper. But to be quite honest with you, I don't think it's a matter of depth. I don't really see that as the reason why the Clippers lost. I think it was a very low probability of that happening and being down or being up 3-1 and then blowing that lead. If they ran back that series 100 times, I think 95% of the time, quite honestly, or maybe even more, the Clippers win that series. And then I'm just going to bet on the top-end talent of Kawhi Leonard in that series if we had to run it back. There's no way I can see them letting that happen this season and ruining their chances again at getting to the NBA Finals, or at least the Western Conference Finals.
Well, it was really weird to me. They were acting like they were like a championship team, that they'd already won the championship. They thought they could just turn it on and off, and that's what came back to bite them. So I can't imagine that they're going to do the same thing this year. I mean, it could be the team. That could be them.
Right.
I mean, that.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. So you guys are chalking it up to a fluke, and I think I'm more so just, and I'm not sure I'm buying in, but I think I am more open to the possibility that, a team that digs deep and fights in a series like that is who the Nuggets are. In a team who, I'm not saying they're just cashing paychecks or anything, but that maybe they just don't have some of that playoff pedigree is maybe a larger portion of that Clippers team. Outside of Kawhi Leonard, obviously that dude can carry almost anybody. And I'm not saying it's like a given that the Nuggets are just a better team than the Clippers, but I like the Nuggets, and I think you're discounting them too easily as just having had a fluke, bubble essentially.
Yeah,
and it'll come down to, I think there's three things. All right, one, who can guard Jokic on the Clippers? Two, who on the Nuggets can guard Kawhi and Paul George? They don't have very many wing defenders. And then three, if Kawhi is healthy, it seemed like he was kind of run down by the end of that series. So if he's not healthy, then I agree, but otherwise I'd take the Clippers.
Yeah, and I think that they're going to come back this season with just more focused, and I think that was a big part of their problem last season, especially during the regular season. It was kind of a trend all year that kind of accumulated in that 3-1 loss. But I think they'll just be more focused this year and just not letting that happen. And then they obviously changed coaches. I think that will play a role in it, with T. Lue coming in, just kind of galvanizing the guys a little bit more than maybe Doc had. And he's coached in big games as well, so I'm not worried about his playoff experience if they get back into this similar situation. So, yeah, Dylan, I'll let you go ahead. We kind of went on a tangent there, which is fine. But if you want to finish your playoff thoughts for the Western Conference.
Yeah. So I got Lakers Clips in the Western Conference Finals. Battle of LA, which should have happened last year. I just think the Lakers are the best team in the league. As long as there's no injuries, I think that they just match up well with the Clippers. They have the better top end talent, but beyond that, they're deeper this year. So they don't really have any flaws in their roster, and I feel like that's going to carry the day against the Clippers in the Western Conference.
Yeah, JT, I'll turn it over to you if you want to just kind of give your rundown of the Western Conference playoffs, high level.
So I just went. Only opinion I had was conference finals, and for that I just said I have the Lakers over the Nuggets, and I think we've sort of laid out the cases for both of those teams pretty well already. So Other than that, I like the Grizzlies, and I still think they could make sort of a dark horse run at least to this, out of the first round. But it's beyond that.
Yeah.
Got nothing.
And I'm in the same page as Dylan. I think the stage is set for Lakers Clippers Western Conference Finals. I thought we were going to get it last year. Obviously, we just talked about what had happened, but I think this year it's going to happen, and I think it's going to be an unbelievable series when it does. And to be quite honest with you, we'll talk about our championships in a little bit. I think I like the Lakers. I lean the Lakers, probably just more so with my heart than my head. Even though I think the Lakers are better this year than they were last year, but I think the Clippers are going to be ready to go, and I really don't think they were that far off of the Lakers last year. So I can't wait for that finals if it does happen. But we'll jump over to the Eastern Conference, Dylan. This is kind of they're definitely not as strong as the West, but there's still some top teams in here that are we didn't see in the last couple of years with the Nets. Kyrie Irving coming back, Kevin Durant coming back, Celtics after their Eastern Conference Finals appearance last season. We got the Bucks with some new additions. The Heat, obviously, we know what happened with them last year in the finals, and then some other teams as well. Russ moving over to the East makes things interesting in that bottom half. How do you see the East shaking out?
I see first round chalk. The only series that will be okay, I actually looked at it. It kind of depends on Kemba. I could actually see the 76ers beating the Celtics. The Celtics don't have that interior presence to guard Embiid. I mean, they have Tristan Thompson, but I'm not sure if he has the right size and the right ability to guard him. So, actually, I'm going to take the one upset I'm going to take in the first round. I would actually take the 76ers over the Celtics. I'm just really nervous about Kemba Walker's knee. And if Kemba Walker's not there, do they have the playmaking presence and then also the off-the-ball one-on-one scoring potential to beat some of these top-end teams? I mean, really, if you think about it, if you take Kemba out of the equation, Jason Tatum is the only one that on a consistent basis can get his own shot and make his own shot, right? I love Brown, but he's more of a line drive player, a guy that's getting out in transition, a three-point shooter. He's not a guy that's going to create for other players. He's not going to score a one-on-one ISO in an effective manner, in my opinion. So I would actually I might take the 76ers in an upset. So that's the only upset in my first round. The Heat and Raptors will be a good series, but I think the Heat are just too talented. So beyond that, it'd be Bucks against the Heat in a rematch of last year. And I think that the Bucks will come through this time. I think Giannis cut his teeth again in the postseason, and I think he will improve. He didn't look like in the preseason. His shot wasn't there yet, but I think he's that type of worker and that type of person to take it up a notch and also to improve on his mistakes from last year. Beyond that, they also obviously have Drew Holiday, so they have another playmaker to threaten the Heat's defense. So Bucks over the Heat. And then I got the Nets over 76ers. That could also be a good series, but I think the Nets' top-end talent is just better than the 76ers. So Bucks, Nets in the Eastern Conference Finals. I'll leave it. I want to hear what you guys have to say before I go to my next pick.
Okay. JT, I'll turn it over to you.
I can't disagree with anything you said. And I would actually, I think, logically wind up at that same conference finals. Nets and Bucks, I think I actually love the Drew Holiday pickup for the Bucks. I think that's going to be big for them to have sort of that point guard presence, especially a defensive-minded one. I think Drew just had some comments today about sort of the mental toughness and sort of on-court toughness that he feels like he brings to that team. And I can definitely see that sort of playing out well for them, especially in the playoffs, especially against a couple of those teams that are maybe on the top end of the East. But I see that happening. The dark horse I have, and I keep coming back to the same two teams across the West and the East, but I still like the Wizards, man. I could see them creeping in there. If you really get top end Russ under Scott Brooks, and Beal catches fire in the playoffs, I just think they could actually, surprise people and do some damage. I mean, you look at the freaking Heat roster that made the NBA Finals last year. You can't tell me that a team helmed by those two guys is sort of out of the question for making the Eastern Conference Finals. But
So I'm with Dylan. I had Bucks at 1. I had Nets at number 2. I think that Bucks will be the better regular season team. I'm really high on the Bucks this year too. I loved the Drew Holiday acquisition. It just gives another guy to take the ball out of Giannis's hands and just kind of be that playmaker and that shot creator. But I'm just going to give my Eastern Conference prediction. I'm leaning Nets as far as the winner of the East. So I had the Lakers, Clippers 1 and 2 in the West. I have Lakers coming out of the West, and I have the Nets, the 2 seed, coming out of the East to face the Lakers in the finals. So we get another Durant-LeBron finals. To me, I do like the Bucks. I still need to see Giannis take that next step in terms of being a winner in the playoffs. We've seen the last couple of years he's been marginalized in big series, and to me, I think obviously the Drew acquisition helps. I still think that Durant's going to be the best player in that series, and I'm putting my money on Durant over Giannis. That's really as simple as it comes down to for me. Obviously, that's not all, but I love Durant this year, and I think he's going to be in the finals again with LeBron. And just as we saw him last time, when he got injured, they got the Raptors, but previously they had the Warriors Cavs finals. I think we're going to get another matchup like that again with the Lakers Nets, and I'll save my pick until we hear from you, Dylan. What do you got?
Well, first I'd like to apologize to the Bucks organization. In a previous podcast that nobody heard, I said they were a clown show, and I was proven wrong because Giannis re-signed. So, obviously,
sorry,
what's it?
I was thinking of this. Sorry to interrupt, but we had. So how good does that Drew Holiday trade look now?
Oh, it looks awesome. I was totally wrong. Is it didn't look like Giannis didn't resign. He was like talking about like, oh, I need to figure stuff out with my agent. He was saying like, oh, we're gonna play day by day. And I was like, oh, that's the playbook. That's the playbook of somebody leaving. So I didn't see it. And then, okay, on the surface, if you trade 3 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps for Drew Holiday with nothing else and with no Giannis promise, it looks really bad, right? But if you get Giannis, it looks really good. So I apologize to the Bucks. I apologize to you guys. I don't feel great about that.
If we went back and we ranked our top offseason moves, I'd put that trade at number 1 just because of the re-signing of Giannis.
Yeah, I agree. And I was thinking about today too. I was thinking about the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I was thinking about how they refused to trade their Nets pick when LeBron wouldn't resign, or he wouldn't like tell them he's going to resign. And look how stupid that looks now. And so that's me admitting that I was wrong. And you got to do whatever you can to keep that guy, because even if you have that asset that you think might be awesome, if you lose LeBron, it will never matter. It's going to be the 8th pick, and you lost the best player in the league, and that's what would have happened with this. But so they went out there, they got a guy that Giannis wanted, obviously, and he re-signed, and that's what they did what they had to do. So there's no price you can pay for Giannis. So that being said, I picked the Nets.
You got it.
Yeah, I think Durant's better than Giannis, and that's like you said, that's what it comes down to. I think Kyrie's better than Drew, or Middleton. So they're good. They're gonna be good. They're both teams are gonna be good. I think it's gonna be a 7-game series, but I'll take the Nets because they've done it before, and they have probably the best player, or 2 of the top 3 players in the series.
Think of how many storylines would come out of that NBA Finals matchup. We'd have Kyrie versus LeBron. We'd have KD versus LeBron, the 2 best players in the league. We'd obviously have, AD, but I mean, I just think that would be. And then the series before that with the Lakers, you have the Battle of the LAs, Kawhi and LeBron. I mean, I'm kind of rooting for that a little bit. In just happens to be my prediction as well. But JT, who did you have coming out of? I'm sorry, I must have missed it. Who did you have coming out of the East and West?
Got the Nets.
Nets and
the Lakers.
Who was other? Okay, you do have the Lakers coming out. Okay.
Hey,
Do you have the Nuggets in the finals? In the Western Conference
yes.
finals?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you guys imagine too, like Kyrie staging the stadium before LeBron's talking astrology? It's gonna be like the hipster weirdo like finals will be great.
No, do you want to be my dream scenario? Is if we get one of those. I have two dream scenarios in the same series. Number one is when. Do you guys remember when LeBron stuffed Curry and then kind of gave him that little side talk as he was walking away? I hope he does that to Kyrie and just kind of stares him down and just talks smack to him. That would be. I don't know why. That would just make my whole series. And then the second one is after the Kyrie comments last time about LeBron not being able to take that clutch shot. If he were to hit some big game-winning clutch shot in a game or a series clinching game, that would make my life. I wouldn't watch sports probably ever again after that.
It's amazing. What they're gonna do the whole time is put Kyrie in a pick and roll and have him switch on to LeBron. LeBron's gonna take his ass in the post and just give him the business. Just the whole series. It's gonna be glorious. Yeah. I just cannot wait.
Oh my God! We have to talk this into existence because this would be I watched every NBA Finals game over the last 10 years. Except for I missed one game, and that was in a non-LeBron series. It was a Raptors-Warriors, and I had something going on that night. But this would probably be my most anticipated finals series of my lifetime. I think this would be the best matchup that we've had. Because even in some of the past years with LeBron, we've known going in that the matchups were pretty lopsided, especially with some of those Cavs teams and the injuries that they had. And then, I'm talking the years when they had to run Della Vadova out there and Timothy Mozgov. But then after that, even when the Warriors added Kevin Durant, then it just got so lopsided just because there was so much talent on that team. And then the Cavs just weren't able to match up with them. I think this year, if that were to happen, it would be probably pretty even going in. I don't know who would be favored. I guess it depends on how the season plays out, obviously. But I think it would be one of the most anticipated matchups of my lifetime in terms of a finals. Is that an over-exaggeration?
I cried during the 2016 finals, so I will not say that'll be my number one. But it will be. That'll be unbelievable.
No, don't get me wrong. That 2016 NBA Finals I did cry too, and that was I remember that game. I was watching it in my living room, and I at my old house, and I was just fist pumping the whole second half. I was so happy, and then it came down to the wire there, and then oh my God, there were so many great moments. We had the LeBron block, we had the Kyrie shot. That's back when I liked Kyrie for a moment there. But I'm saying going into that finals,
73-win Warriors.
It was a 73-win Warriors.
Yeah, you're right. They're both really good. So
Warriors was it pretty even or were they heavily favored?
Oh, heavily favored.
Yeah. So I feel like this one would be a little more even. I don't know. We'll see. But I would be ecstatic if we had that. I would even be for an LA Western Conference Finals. I'd be ecstatic as well.
Hey, JT, are you sick of hearing about our wet dreams on this podcast?
Well, I am, but and I can't say that LeBron in the finals or Lakers. It's honestly half LeBron, and I'm not a LeBron hater. I'm not in love with him either. So, I do dislike the Lakers. So, a LeBron Lakers team in the finals is not in any way a dream scenario. However, assuming that happens, that matchup between them and the Nets happens, my dream scenario is that LeBron hits a game winner over Kyrie, and then the entire post-game interview, he's just burning sage without mentioning it at all. Just sort of casually doing it.
I love that.
I want LeBron to make a flat earth joke then, too, in a post-game. Oh, I'd make my life.
Oh, gosh.
Talk about how grateful he is to talk to all the pawns after the game.
Dude, I'd be so happy.
Hey Sam,
I'm just thinking of all these scenarios in my head.
Hey Sam, will you send me to the finals for to be, for an analyst role?
We'll get some press credentials.
I'd fly us all out. We do a podcast live from like outside the stadium. Like we'd be in a booth like next to the stadium, but no one would be around us, but we'd still be giving like a podcast. And like over to our right would be like ESPN and all these other radio stations. No one would even. But we'd be so happy just talking about like an NBA Finals between the Nets.
It'd be like these giant high tech booths, and then we'd be sitting in like a lemonade stand made by like an 8-year-old.
Yeah, and yeah. Oh my gosh, that'd be so fun. So we'd either go to Brooklyn or LA. That would be. Oh my gosh, that'd be awesome. I was trying to think of what I was gonna fly us out for, but that was I had a parlay bet on the championship winners. So if the first 3 hit, then I was gonna fly us to the Super Bowl if that 4th team was in there, or whatever league it was, Stanley. It would be the Super Bowl, but obviously those didn't go very well. So I'm not gonna relive those. But anyways,
hey, so Lakers in 6. So can we all agree?
Yeah, probably.
Yes, we got JT on board.
I mean I gotta pick with my heart on this one. I would go. Yeah, I mean I can't. I just, even if I thought the Nets were gonna win based on what I saw during the regular season, I don't know if I could pick them. Even if it was the right pick, I just couldn't do it. Okay, so I'd have to go Lakers. I'd say 7.
So okay, I'd say that too, 6 or 7. But let's say this is a championship year for LeBron. How many he'll go into next year at 37 years old? How many more championships do you think he wins after this one? Say they do. I almost think we're hitting the end of the road.
He's got. I'd go over under 1.5, and I would still
1.5 including this year.
No. Like if we not including this year, okay. So 1.5. So
2.5 would be your over.
No.
Just sorry, going forward.
No, 1.5.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So it's so hard to win a championship. I would maybe go 2, but 1's probably more realistic. But he also has Anthony Davis. I mean, he's 27?
That's true. Yeah.
I don't know, and he doesn't look to be slowing down. I mean, that guy takes care of his body. That guy's unbelievable. He's an alien. He's my hero.
One thing we don't know either is how the league's gonna shape out. So that would obviously factor into it. If we had a pick here right now, I would take the under on 1.5.
Okay, so you'd say 1.
I would say he wins 1 more.
You're saying this year, and then you're not gonna bet on another one after that.
Correct. If the league doesn't change much, and we don't get any like stars, kind of like joining forces, big 3 or anything along those lines, and we didn't really see a decline this year from LeBron, I'd be more inclined to take the over on 1.5. But obviously, sitting here right now, the start of the 2020 regular season, I'm gonna take the under on that.
That's fair.
Tough call, yeah.
It's a tough call. All right, guys, you want to move on to our award predictions?
Let's do it.
All right, we'll start right off the top with our Rookie of the Year. This one's going to be challenging. I'm excited to hear what you guys think. I think everyone can agree this wasn't a particularly strong rookie class. So we'll see how it shapes up. JT, who do you have for Rookie of the Year pick?
I've got it as Wiseman.
Wow, okay.
I think he ends up putting up the most, how would I put it, significant stats for a borderline playoff team. Playing some legitimately important minutes for that team and filling the box score to some extent. I think that's kind of what it takes to be Rookie of the Year. unless you've got a rookie that's really going to fill it up for a bad team, which I don't think we have one this year. I think there's just too much of a log jam for Ball in Charlotte with Rozier and Hayward and Graham. They're gonna fight for offensive shares in Charlotte, and then I think for Edwards it's sort of the same thing. He's going to be sort of fighting Culver if he really has taken a step forward. Beasley, Russell, and Towns. I could actually see, Edwards might not be better than a third or fourth option for the next 2 years on the Wolves. So I just think Wiseman has the clearest path, and I think he ends up winning. But I'll still think at the end of the year that Denny deserved it, because I still think, by the way, I think those are coming through on the live stream. Yes,
Oh, they are.
They totally are.
Love it. I love it.
But I think he ends up being a more functionally useful basketball player for a good playoff team in the Wizards. I just don't think it comes through in the way of stats, and when they end up voting at the end of the year, I don't think it's going to end up going his way. So my vote is Wiseman.
Dylan?
I got Wiseman too. He has a clear role on the Warriors, and I think they'll win enough games where they will take like his stats plus the wins and make him the Rookie of the Year.
Okay, and I'm going to go Ball. I just think he's going to put up the numbers, and I think that's what this award is about, more or less. So it'll be on a bad team, but I think the numbers are going to look good, so I think he's going to win it. So that's my pick. That was Rookie of the Year, guys. Let's move on to Defensive Player of the Year. JT, who do you have for Defensive Player of the Year?
I've got Anthony Davis. I just figure there's like a few guys in the league that I feel like you could give it to any given year. So it's sort of just like, to me, the argument is just sort of like, well, who's up? Like, who's like a legitimate defensive force that hasn't won it in the last 3 years? And then you choose them. That's why I go Davis. I think Gobert or Giannis or, whoever, I think there's several probably legitimate candidates there, but I think Davis ends up winning it.
Dylan?
I got AD also. This might be exaggeration, but I think he's the best defensive player I've ever seen. Like, that playoff run, he was such a monster, and I think that'll carry over into this year, and I think they have a better core around him to play defense, and that, a lot of times the defensive player of the year comes from the best defensive team, right? So I think they might be the best defensive team. So AD for me.
And I'm gonna go Karl Anthony Towns.
Shut up.
Yeah.
No, completely joking. I'm gonna make it a trio of Davis picks. So, it's just the clear pick. I think the smart pick. I love Davis as a defender. He's a big reason why the Lakers won it. I don't really have to talk him up too much. I'm going Davis. Most improved player, JT. You might have hinted at it earlier, but who you got?
Yeah, I've got DeJounte Murray there. So Dylan doesn't see the potential. I do. I think he just looks really smooth. Just really talented around the rim, a really good athlete, really long, really athletic. And I just think he ends up taking, that skill set a step forward again this year into something that is really productive for the Spurs. So I'm going Murray.
Dylan, who you got?
I got a fantasy player on my team, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think he's going to be the number one option. I think he was kind of alternating number one option last year, but he's going to put up a lot of stats for OKC. So I don't know how many wins he'll get, but I think he will put up enough stats to win that award.
Is it hedging my bets if I pick two here? Is that illegal? That might be illegal. All right, then I'll go with my top pick. Guys, I think it's going to be Ja Morant. Rookie of the Year last year. I think he's going to take the next step to stardom this year. I think he's going to emerge as like a true superstar in the league, and I think he's going to lead that Grizzlies team to the playoffs. I really like him as most improved player. Obviously had a good rookie year, so I'm expecting like a huge year in order for him to win that award, but he's my pick at most improved player of the year.
That was my question too. Is I sort of see sort of like a Derrick Rose like trajectory out of his young career, and so I could definitely see like a Rookie of the Year, Most Improved Player, into something like MVP contention in year 3. But he was really good last year, so I just didn't know if he would take that kind of step forward already in year 2 in order to make him eligible for that award. But
Well, and my deal is I hate how they do like the first and second year players. They always do that's probably a good pick, Sam. That's actually probably the smartest pick. But that's like a linear projection or improvement for Ja. It makes sense,
Yeah.
So I
Right.
always want to go for a player that actually did improve beyond expectations, So maybe even my pick doesn't really make that much sense, but
I mean, that's kind of linear as well. I mean,
yeah, you're right.
He's
You're
still
right.
a young
Yeah,
player.
yeah, you're right. What JT was your pick again?
Murray, he's year 4.
Oh, yeah, that makes more sense though because he was actually injured and had a shit year last year.
Some other guys that come up on, I just pulled up FanDuel's projections or their odds for most improved player. Top odds include Christian Wood and
Seen
then
that one.
Alexander, Kobe White, DeAndre Ayton, Michael Porter, Jamal Murray is an interesting one. Zion and Morant, Hero, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so
Talon Tucker is now at plus 3,300, which makes him one of the top 16 or so.
I could see Murray sort of in that conversation too. The other Murray, Jamal Murray. I just didn't know if for guys like him or for a guy like Hero, if there wouldn't be some like bubble bias where like your last impression of them was a really good impression. So when you're talking about who is most improved this year, you're not really starting from what their production was over the course of the regular season last year. But
Okay, guys, we don't have to spend too much time on this one, but Coach of the Year, JT, who you got? Or you got anyone?
yeah, but it really just the lines of the two teams I've been harping on. I've got I'm between Taylor Jenkins and Scott Brooks. It's one of those two, and it's the two teams that I've thought have been hugely underrated so far this year, and I think they're gonna have great years. So
Dylan, who you got?
I wouldn't say him kind of pass. I went Stan Van Gundy. I think the Pelicans will improve a lot, so I think he'll get the Coach of the Year.
I don't have a strong take on this, but I'll just go T. Lue. I think he'll do a much better job of managing the egos on that team, and they'll have a more focus this year, and I think they'll be competing for that top seed. Might even get it. I don't know, but we'll see. So I'm going to take T. Lue. Usually goes to a team that doesn't have that high of expectations, and they kind of overperform. So it's not the greatest pick, but it's my pick. And then lastly, we'll go to the MVP award. JT, who you got?
Kevin Durant, man, Slim Reaper. He's gonna be that dude. He's gonna be a killer again, and he's gonna. If they come out with the 1 seed in the East, I think Durant's the guy. So.
And then as far as the MVP goes, I have a strong feeling that Dylan and I are going to be leaning the same way on this as well. Dylan, who you got?
Luka.
Ooh.
Okay. All right.
Oh, okay, yeah. So my deal was Lakers are gonna kind of cancel each other out. Same with the Nets. For the Bucks, Giannis just won the last 2 years. I think there'll be voter fatigue. Clippers kind of cancel each other out. So it's down to me for the Nuggets and Mavs. So Jokic and Luka. And I just thought Luka's gonna put up better stats. A lot of times Jokic doesn't take the regular season as serious. So I don't know if I feel super strongly about it, but I'd probably pick Luka.
Yeah, Luka's the front runner right now in terms of odds at plus 410. I just think that makes sense. I think the Mavs are going to take a step forward, and I think Luka's going to put up just crazy numbers. So,
Yeah.
Do you think?
I do like Luka, but that's not my pick.
Okay. I was just gonna ask if you think if the Mavs aren't a top 3 seed, do you think he can win it? I just feel like so often they end up giving it to the best player on the best team.
Yeah, so that was my issue. I couldn't find a player from the top 4 teams that I thought would, be stand out so clearly that they win the award. So I thought the Mavs could get a top 3 seed and then Luka would win the award. That's kind of where I was going from. So I thought him or Jokic. But I don't know. I just feel like the Lakers, Clippers, Nets, they're gonna sit games. They're gonna cancel each other out a little bit. So that's where I fell. I don't know if it's a good pick or not, but
So I'm curious, before I unveil my pick, who do you guys think I'm leaning towards?
AD.
Yeah.
So it was between three guys. I had my three picks were Luka, Anthony Davis, or LeBron. And I'm going to go LeBron James.
Oh.
So I was really debating between Davis and LeBron, but I think LeBron got robbed last year. I get Giannis had an amazing year and probably deserved it. I'm not saying he didn't, but
You just said he probably got robbed.
yeah, I think they were both deserving, is what I'm trying to say. But I think LeBron is a more valuable player than Giannis. So to me, I think is he 36 or 37, LeBron?
37.
37.
Do you turn 37?
I think he's 37.
I think he's 36. If I'm
I want to say 36.
Maybe he is 36.
I got him at. He turns 36 on December 30th, so he's only 35 right now.
Oh, okay.
Only 35. But to me, to win an MVP at 36 years old, I don't think it would be above LeBron to go purposely chase that award, just to show everyone that he is the best. Because now, especially because part of my reasoning is Durant's back, so he's going to get a lot of the spotlight, and he's going to be amazing this year. I'm high on Durant, but I think LeBron's going to, across the league, that he's still the best player. I think last year he led the NBA in assists, if I remember correctly. I think he's going to be right up there again this year. He's going to be averaging the same number of points. He was number 2 last year in the voting, I believe, and I think this year he gets it. So it's a lot. Let's see what he's got. LeBron's got plus 1,500 odds. He's behind. He's number 7 on the list. So it's not the most popular pick, but I'm going to roll with my guy.
I think the one thing, well, maybe not the one thing, but like one thing that really tips the scales towards a guy like Luka, especially in a season like this, will be guys like Durant and LeBron are going to end up, these real veteran guys on these real elite teams. They're going to end up taking nights off. It's going to be the DNP rests. And when you have a guy like Luka that's carrying a team like that night in and night out, he's going to get some more love there. So.
Well, that's where I fall with AD, LeBron, Kawhi, and also KD. So maybe 4 of the top players, but I think that's going to happen. So that's why I kind of felt.
Maybe it's just the ring ceremony going on to my right that's got me a little hyped up. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I'm rolling with my guy. Any other awards you want to touch on before we get out of here, guys?
Nope.
I do have one other one real quick.
Okay.
This is an award that I made up, but it is the least improved player, and I'm going to go with Karl Anthony Towns on this one. Any objections?
Dude, this guy's just piling on a guy who's hurting, and one of the feel bad stories of the NBA, and you're just piling on him. I can't support that.
But one thing I will say that might surprise you guys. I'm rooting for Towns this year. Like, I hope
I would hope so.
No. I mean, I hope he proves me wrong. I'm coming from like an area, basically, that I'm basically what I'm saying is I'm trusting what I see, and what I've seen from him is a guy that we can't build a franchise around. But there's no other guy that no other opinion that we want to prove wrong on, especially with the offseason that he has had and the 2020 that he has had. If he comes out and he dominates, I'll be one of the happiest guys, Minnesota fans out there. But like I said, I don't see it happening. Hate to pile on the guy, but
I'd like to end my part of the podcast by saying the least improved player will be Zach LaVine.
Shut your mouth. Zach LaVine, I'm not gonna say he's gonna challenge Durant for MVP, but I feel like he's gonna be in the conversation. He's going to be in the conversation for MVP. That's all I'm gonna say.
We need to save it.
JT, you didn't even have him in your playoffs. How can he be in the conversation for MVP?
I think people are going to recognize just the lack of depth around him and just know that like he did everything humanly possible to get the Bulls to the playoffs. It just couldn't be done. You know, they'll recognize
what is
that.
there? So, so I got the Bulls over under at 28.5. Without Levine, they're probably like what you say, like a 10-win team.
No, probably like 4.
Oh, 4. Okay.
Yeah,
so yeah, he actually might have a strong case.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
You might be unanimous too. You never know. We'll
if
see.
somebody votes against him, I'll be surprised. But like, I mean, there's just weird stuff that happens. So.
All right, guys. Well, we can go ahead here and get out of here. Any other last thoughts you guys want to talk about? Anything you want to bring up that we missed? Excited for the season, I hope.
Excited.
You know, Dylan, you watching this game tonight? Lakers Clips?
No, well, yeah, I probably will, but I'm already in the doghouse right now. I'm supposed to be watching The Bachelor right now, because this is like the last episode, and so I'm gonna see what I can do, man. It's gonna be a tough one tonight.
I'm guessing a dude picks a girl and they live probably not happily ever after. So just spoiler alert there. But
I'll give you a spoiler alert. Lakers are gonna win tonight, so
I'm going Clippers.
oh wow,
Jesus.
Against the MVP
Oh,
in the
yeah.
first game.
Jesus.
It's Clippers have to stand there on their court and watch the Lakers get their rings. I think that's going to motivate them. Lakers are going to be, high off of the ring ceremony, and they're going to get slapped. I'm going to go Clippers
They're gonna
fairly
get
easily
slapped.
tonight. Yeah, I'm going to go Clippers fairly easy tonight, and then I'm going to go Lakers big time in the finals. That's my pick. So, all right, guys, we'll go ahead and get out of here. We'll meet again in probably 2 weeks. Talk about some of the storylines going on throughout the season. Again, this was the first episode of the RoundballRadio. Is that what we're calling it?
Yeah, that's
we
what
need
we
to get a jingle in here for the next time too, so I know exactly when to get this thing started, kick it off. But anyone who joined, we did have some guys in the chat put down their thoughts, which is great. So we want to thank you all
Of
for
all
listening.
the opinions we could have during the show, the one we had was freaking end of the bench. Talon Horton Tucker being an elite player.
Gonna be an all-star. Love it. Absolutely love it. If that happens, watch out for the Lakers this year, guys. I'm telling you. But we'll meet again here in 2 weeks, like I said. Hopefully get some good storylines coming throughout the season. We'll be able to give you guys our 2-week reaction to the NBA season. We'll be able to watch a bunch of games, get some opinions under our belt, start forming some idea of how these predictions will shape out, and we'll come to you then. So for now, signing off, your host, Sam Hadler. Anything you guys want to leave them with, guys?
Excited for basketball, man. That's all I got.
Happy
Twitter.
opening day. See you guys.